Very special thanks once again to Affordable Prestige Cars in Glastonbury. Of course, I've worked with them a couple of times on the channel now for the Jaguar XFR, the Mercedes R-Class, and now this XK. It's always a pleasure to work with them, so if you are in the market for something which is definitely luxurious, a high profile, sometimes even a high performance vehicle, for an amazingly good price, then you should definitely check them out. And of course, as always, I've linked to their website where you can check out their current stock down in the video description. Those of you who watched my review for the Jaguar XFR a few days ago will doubtless remember that I absolutely raved about how much I love that car, and I still do. In fact, it would be my Jaguar of choice. But on the same day that I drove that one, I actually drove this car as well. And of course, this is the X180 generation, in other words, the 2006 era Jaguar XK. Not an XKR, not an XKRS, but the quote-unquote standard XK Coupe. And one of the things that you might be wondering is, with all of the potential options for test driving something else, maybe at a different dealership like an XKR or an XKRS, whatever, why the XK? Why the standard one? Why the slowest one? Why would you want to drive that one? Well, spoiler alert, because this is actually my favourite version of the XK, both before and after it, and the reason why is actually twofold. See, a lot of the cars that I love, especially when it comes to supercars and sports cars, are actually the original versions. And the reason why, visually speaking, is because to me it has just this clean, simple purity to the design. And to my eye, they often look prettier without the additional wings and intakes and body kits that those faster versions get. So, for instance, in the case of the Jag, something like an XKRS with the additional wing, the louder paint, the body kit, the intakes, it doesn't look bad, but this one just has a clean, simple class to it. And for a vehicle which is 14 years old, I think it's aged remarkably well. It's still a stunning looking car, it turns heads wherever you go, and it has this kind of elegance which reminds me a lot, for understandable reasons, of the kind of elegance that you would also expect from an Aston Martin of a similar time, something like a DB9, maybe if you went older to like a DB7 or even a Vantage. But, and this may be controversial, probably even the most controversial thing I'll say in this video, having driven a Vantage, I would choose this Jaguar over it. And there are multiple reasons why. And of course I could talk all day long about many of them. The fact that this has more space, the fact that it is clearly a superior car in terms of build quality and probably reliability as well, the fact that the dealership support and dealership network is larger, all of these things are significant real-world advantages. But to me, the biggest single advantage and the biggest single reason why it catches my attention more is simply the value. The value for money on the XK is insanely good. I mean, find me another 2+2 GT for under £10,000 that can even come close to matching this. In fact, I'll give you a head start. The Maserati 4200 GT is one of them, and of course I reviewed that car a few weeks ago here on the channel, so if you haven't checked out that review and you are in the market for something like this, of course take a look at that one as well. However, as a former Maserati owner, and as somebody who absolutely adores Maserati, I'll tell you right now, of those two, I would choose this Jaguar. And the reason why has nothing to do with brand allegiance. This is simply a smarter move. Now for one of these, you're looking at about £6,000 if you're looking to go for the cheapest option with higher mileage. You're looking at about 7 or 8 for a good one. And you could easily pay up to about 10,000 for like a mint, ultra low mileage, borderline collector's edition XK. Most people probably wouldn't go that far with a car like this, so I would say typically you're looking to pay between £7,500 and £8,000. So for that money, what do you actually get? Well, apart from the fact that you get a stunning looking and pretty incredible sounding car, as you heard from the start of this video, you get a very nice spec as well. Not necessarily something that's going to blow the doors off these days, but certainly more than enough for a, let's remember, base model version of this sports car slash GT. The engine is a 4.2 litre, it's a full-on V8, no skimping out with a smaller straight six or something like that. It is naturally aspirated, which I love. 300 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque. Of course, it's an automatic, rear-wheel drive. The performance doesn't sound as amazing these days. About 5.9 to 60. Some places say it's closer to 5.5 in reality. I can believe that, it certainly feels that quick. The point is, it's under 6 seconds, which for a 300 horsepower car of its size is still very good. It is limited, unfortunately, to 155, but if you did opt to have that limiter removed, it wouldn't surprise me at all if this car could actually probably do somewhere in the region of maybe 165, 167 perhaps, so similar territory to something like a Vauxhall Monaro, for example, of a similar time period. Now again, that's another great rival to this vehicle. Of course, only available in a manual though, if memory serves, so again you have to weigh that up. And with the Vauxhall you get a good looking car with a big American V8, but the interior is a Vauxhall, so of course it's not going to match a Jag. In terms of Aston comparisons, well, it's almost difficult to make one, because the closest thing would be like a 90s DB7, and even then the car is much older, will mostly have higher mileage, chances are it won't be as reliable, it's no quicker, and you're looking at what, 15,000, 17,000 for a bog, standard, lowest on the market DB7. This is $8,000 for a good one. To me, it's just not really much of a comparison. And to go back once again to that Maserati 4200, yes, you can pick them up for the same kind of price sometimes, about 8 to 10 grand, certainly for a 3200 GT, if not a 4200. But having driven and reviewed that car as well, I can tell you that yes, the Maserati is more of a unicorn. It is more special. It has a wackier interior. It sounds more visceral most of the time. And technically it is quicker. However, the Maserati is a Maserati. So you've always got that thinking in the back of your mind, is it going to break? With this Jag, I just didn't feel that. And that is the kind of confidence that you want to be able to have in a car. In fact, in that sense, this reminded me of the Porsche 911, which I reviewed on the channel, the 993 generation Carrera. It just feels solid. It feels well built. It feels like something you can rely on. And speaking of relying on the car on, for instance, a day-to-day basis, another gorgeous thing about the XK is that even more so than something like an XKR, you can authentically, genuinely use this car every day if you wanted to. It can hit about 25 miles per gallon. It's a hatchback technically, so you've got great trunk space. It is a 2+2. As you can tell from the interior shots, it's a whole lot more spacious than it easily could be. In fact, the headroom genuinely shocked me and really impressed me in this car, because I didn't even have to adjust the seat. And for a car that's this sleek and low slung, a proper GT, well, that kind of headroom is very rare, and I certainly appreciated that. And to go back to that fuel economy for just a second, not only can it do 25 to the gallon, but you can actually get around 380 miles out of a tank, which again, of course, isn't going to match something like a normal daily driver, but for a GT, and that's exactly what this is, I think that's pretty good. That is at least as good as something like a Maserati. It's way better than a Vauxhall Monaro, which is a very thirsty car. So yeah, it's actually a pretty usable daily GT, in fact. And another thing that I really enjoyed about the XK, and this was much more of a subtle thing, is that when you look at the car from the outside, it has certain elements of the E-Type, namely the massive bonnet. And when you have a car that has such a long, big bonnet, it could easily be unwieldy to use. But when you're inside the XK, in a similar way to the XFR, and I applaud Jaguar for this, it melts away. This car does not feel anyway near as big as it is, and the bonnet just disappears. It doesn't feel like you're driving, some massive hot rod like a Dodge Viper or something like that. It feels perfect, in fact, for British roads. And speaking of those dimensions, it's not just the size which is deceptive. It's the weight as well, because a car that can do 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds, has a top speed of probably close to 170 without the limiter, well, that from only 300 horsepower is actually really healthy, especially when you factor in that it doesn't have an all-wheel drive launch advantage, and it is an automatic. So it's not going to be the fastest accelerating thing around, and yet that's still very good. It's more than fast enough to have a lot of fun every day if you choose to use it that regularly, and even if you use it as a weekend toy or a long distance GT, it's still got more than enough performance for most people to have a lot of fun with. And I think, to tie in again to my Maserati review in particular, the key difference between this and that car is that this one will definitely appeal more to, for instance, an older driver. Because this car isn't exhausting to drive. The Maserati is so loud and hot, and it's got all these smells coming from the engine, and it feels like a race car on the street. And that's great, but it can get tiring after a while. The Jaguar, on the other hand, simply doesn't. It's smooth, it's comfortable, it's spacious. The interior, to me, hasn't aged quite as well as the outside, but it's still a Jag, so you get exactly what you expect from it. It is classy, it is relatively old school, it's old money in effect, and I actually still appreciate that even as a younger guy. And it has a kind of day-to-day usability that most GTs, and certainly most sports cars, don't even really attempt to, but I like the fact that this one offers that as well. But to get back on point with that weight, which I was mentioning earlier on, that's another very deceptive thing about this XK. Despite its size, and despite having a proper full-size V8 engine, it only weighs 1,595 kilos. That's a 1.6 ton car. That is not heavy at all, in fact, for something this size. Now, of course, it's only a two-door, it's technically a sports car, so you'd hope it would be light. But again, this is a fully kitted out, authentically equipped Jaguar. It's not a TVR, it's not a Noble. This is like an Aston, Bentley, that kind of level, Mercedes even, that kind of GT. So 1,600 kilos is actually really good. And even the open top version, if you do decide to go for the convertible, even that only weighs 80 kilos more. And considering how much structural rigidity additions have to be made to an open top, that's not really that much of a penalty in weight. In summary though, my thoughts on this XK are actually fairly simple. I think it's a great deal, and I believe that there are so many reasons why it's a great deal that it becomes at a certain point kind of moot. You get the idea. As I've been saying through this video, there is so much to love about this car. It looks fantastic, it sounds great, the performance is still good, the handling and the way it handles its weight through corners is very impressive, especially again for a base model technically. It's comfortable, it's spacious, it has more than enough trunk space for a long distance tourer. It's something that you can genuinely use every day. It's not obscenely powerful, which means that yes, it's quick, but it doesn't drink fuel like a muscle car. And even the prices are insanely good for the kind of car that you get for the money. I mean, $8,000 for all of this it's incredible, really. In my opinion, there is no other GT on the market which can currently match everything that this can do. The closest things would be a couple of the ones that I mentioned. Your Monaros, your Maserati 4200s or 3200s, maybe even something like a BMW 6 Series. You might be able to squeeze an M6 into that kind of $10,000 price range, but even then, it'll be a pretty high mileage one. So to me, the Jag it's just a fantastic all-round option, and it's more of an option which I would recommend to somebody who, as I kind of alluded to with the older driver thing, somebody who likes that kind of old school class. It has an air of elegance to it. It's a car which isn't trying to kill you all the time, it's not trying to drift around all over the place, and it's not visceral, it's not raw. It sounds great only when you want it to. When you drive it, it's actually fairly sedate most of the time. I like that. So if that sounds like it appeals to you, I would definitely recommend trying to find one on the market, and you could even check out the website down below to see if theirs is still for sale. But until next time, I'll see you then. Of course, if you're new to the channel, be sure to not only subscribe, but more importantly, hit the notification bell so that you see all of my new videos. And of course, if you want to check out some of my other reviews, such as the 911, the XFR, and various others that I spoke about, the Maserati as well, then of course, click here on screen. But until next time, I'll see you then, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.